Hi, I'm Dean Vogel of the BioProcess Institute, and welcome to our first episode of Between Two Ferrules. This series is designed to highlight the people, the products, the trends that are important to the bioprocessing industry right now, here today. Our guest today is Paul Priebe, Vice President of Business Development and New Markets for Qosina. Before joining Qosina, Paul earned a degree in mechanical engineering and has spent his career in technical sales and marketing positions, including 17 years at Sartorius Sateen. So let's have a discussion today with Paul Priebe. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is the first one of our Between Two Ferrules, and we're really happy that you're here to kind of kick this off. We're excited to hear about some of the things you've been doing, as well as what Qosina's up to. And so that's really important for us.
Great.
So you've had about 20 years experience in process filtration and single use. Can you give us some thoughts about this past year with COVID-19 and what's going on, and what do you think some of the impacts are to the single use community and what's going on in the market?
Yeah, sure. I think the single use industry, Jim, has to make sure that they first talk about the impact single use has had on COVID, right? Because I think there's a lot of complaining going on right now that potentially because of supply chain interruptions, et cetera, long lead times,
yep,
that there's a negative impact on single use technology on the COVID response. But there's no possibility whatsoever that vaccines could have been developed in 9 months without single-use technology.
Absolutely.
So we have to start with, the fact that single-use solved a lot of problems, but of course the spike in demand associated with COVID and the underlying demand of non-COVID therapies being brought to market, when you go to maybe doubling the demand on a technology that was on forecast, no industry can respond quickly to that. So for me, the long-lasting impact should be, I hope, some greater understanding of the supply chain, where the weaknesses are, and develop a toolkit of solutions for how to pivot when there are interruptions in the supply chain. Of course, in a regulated industry, change is always hard. So second sourcing or changing to a different component because of a shortage, or a different material because of a shortage, is by nature very difficult. And we need tools and a playbook to be able to do that.
Well, it's funny, when we started with helping some folks with single use, some of them started out initially of having those second sources, right? And they spent a lot of resources qualifying 2 or more suppliers, only to realize that they never leveraged the second one and spent a lot of time and money on that. Obviously now we learned through this event that may not be the thing to do all the time, but there may be certain instances where you're going to have to.
Well, I like to say that second sourcing is one tool in the bag. You really have to understand the supply chain much more deeply to ensure that at some point you don't end up at the same choke point.
Correct.
You may have 2 sources, and then at the end you've got one component that's the weak link in your supply chain. I mean, the interruptions in today's market, and it's not just the single-use market, right? Consumer behaviors have changed, demands on different plastics and things like that have changed. So what we're hearing about shortages like on polycarbonate or nylon or raw base resins shortages. So if you think that dual sourcing at the N-1 supplier level is going to solve your supply chain issues, you're mistaken. You need a much more comprehensive understanding of the supply chain to de-risk it, or a toolkit to pivot and be able to declare comparability and work under deviation or some other combination of that to be able to survive during times of crisis.
And I think that toolkit, or that knowledge base of really understanding who are your suppliers, what are your products and your components, or if you're an end user, what are the components that you're using and how you're using them is key.
Exactly.
And that's something that we try to do here at BPI to do that. I'm sure Qosina must be working on that. Can you tell us a little bit about your role at Qosina and then how you're looking to expand the business into new markets?
Sure. So when I was looking to make a change in my career, I had been in single use at Sartorius for something around 15 years, and I understood this single use marketplace as developing some unmet needs, and there are a proliferation of new suppliers in the marketplace, and each of these suppliers has the exact same issues eventually. They all want to join the market because it's an exciting, fast-growing market. And typically a fast, flexible, agile model is the way to win business when you're a new customer. You serve your local customer well, and you win the business. But fast and flexible doesn't scale well. Fast, flexible, agile eventually means you have a warehouse full of components because you bought the minimum order quantity you needed from your supplier in order to serve the quantity for your customer. Well, you used 100 out of 500 pieces for a phase 1 trial. Those other 400 sit on the shelf till phase 2 or 3. And if that product never makes it to phase 2, then they sit there forever until they're discarded. So Qosina, who's been serving the medical device industry for more than 40 years, has always served a regulated businesses, people building medical devices. And what we do is small quantity distribution for those components to the med device manufacturers. Mm-hmm. So our control over the supply chain, the quality oversight of our suppliers, and all of that really felt like a perfect fit for the single-use industry.
Seems good, yeah.
And so my primary role since joining Qosina, the new market, is the expansion and launch of a complete portfolio for the single-use bioprocessing.
Okay, because I know in our experience we've helped a lot of integrators utilize Qosina for the smaller parts.
Exactly.
You know, historically those that have been in medical device.
Right. Here I have a small sample bag, and we do a lot of small quantity sampling. But Qosina has always been known for small lure lock fittings. So this a lure to barb adapter, so you can adapt from a lure to a flexible tubing like silicone or TPE. And we've been known for those swabbable lures, pinch clamps, things like that for years, serving, in fact, most of the single-use integrators that exist in the world. But now we've created a one-stop shop where essentially all of the basics needed to create a single-use system are available from Qosina. One of our widest categories, so I personally did this over the past year. We curated in really this comprehensive portfolio, and barbed tube-to-tube connectors. We have well more than 500 different barb connectors, and we'll talk. I think we're going to talk. I know, Jim, we're going to talk about standardization in a little while, I'm sure.
Yep.
So we can talk about barbs and why we need 500 when we get to standardization.
Absolutely, absolutely. But how big of a scale do you go to now? I mean, obviously this here is 1/8 inch or whatever tubing, 1/8 inch ID. What are some of the larger sizes you can go up to now?
So yeah, this is, I think, I think that's 1/8 inch. Typically hose barbs up to 1 inch.
Okay.
So 1 inch ID tubing would be adapted. So everything in that range. But essentially anything that's commercially available.
So how does that work for an integrator if they signed up with you? Do you have some type of a quality system that they plug into, or what would happen with that?
Well, so we run an ISO 1345 9001 quality management system. Mm-hmm. So because we serve med device, we have 1345, and of course 9001 is just good to have.
All industry, yeah.
Exactly. So our quality unit does provide oversight of our suppliers, and then all of our documentation, of course, is controlled within the controlled document system that we need to maintain because of the 1345. So when we establish a specification, then that's subject to change control, and so that our customers know and or can trust that we're under control of that item. And so we have, change notification, change control, and segregated inventory, last time buy options, and we really do need, of course, medical devices had this need for years.
Sure.
And
controlling the
single
supply
use.
chain like we started the conversation.
Exactly. So all of that is, part of the foundation of how we serve the regulated industries, and so we bring that benefit to single use as well.
So if I buy the product, let's say I bought this product right here, I would have the quality package that I could either log into your database and get its pedigree or whatever would go through your system for that?
Exactly. So if you're registered on our website, you can download all the product documentation for these products directly from our website. So 2D and 3D drawings or CAD models. So the step files you can serve down directly. Product information or product specification summary. So that's a nice sheet to start with because while it doesn't have the backup documentation associated with it, it gives you all the answers. You don't have to read a 50-page document to extract, it's USP Class 6 and we have REACH and RoHS certification on these things. A variety of different things, the gamma compatibility, the shelf life, things of that nature,
Very
all
good.
summarized on one document.
Wow, pretty handy. Now, early on in the conversation, we talked about an example of, let's say, the supply chain was interrupted. So let's say you have a piece, I'm using this piece, and for whatever reason I can't have this now, or it's been discontinued or something. How do you help me deal with that problem?
Right, so first thing is function or shape, right? In this case, I need a female lure by 1/8 inch barb. So we have to search for function first, and then the best thing would be if I can find one made by someone else molded from the same resin. So we have transparency to the resins on a very high proportion of our products, and so that we can readily switch from one to the other. And of course, it'll be purchased under a different part number, but we can provide a documentation package that allows you to say it's like for like. You can leverage your existing validation. Maybe you have to, of course, do a risk assessment and understand, are there any risks to choosing the new piece? If it's an ISO lure connector and the barb is the same dimension, I think you could probably go forward. If the barb is slightly different, because there are no standards for barbs, you may want to do an engagement qualification, quick qualification to show comparability to cover the risk of a leak there. But that would be the approach that I would suggest. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Well, that would definitely help. I could see that helping some other people. How about the more detailed information? We work with a fair amount of end users and they'd like the extractables information and so on. So let's say we needed that for a component. How do you help them with that?
So with extractables documentation, it is on a supplier by supplier basis. It really depends upon who the end supplier is and what their policies and procedures are. In some cases, of course, the BPOG extractables database or clearinghouse is one good mechanism that can allow them to access that. Other suppliers are willing to give us their extractables information that we can share with qualified end users. So it is a little bit case by case.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time here today and look forward to continuing this discussion maybe the next time you're in Rhode Island. And good luck with Qosina and the new adventure that you're going into.
Thanks for having me.